This is a beautiful night. Tony Hsieh is, to me, one of the heroes of the world because he understands what's gone wrong in business. He understands that business has forgotten the customer. He understands that business has forgotten the employee. And business has been, for the past X years, just going for money, bottom line, all that stuff. This guy has jumped in to the online shoe business and run to the top of it. He passed $1 billion in revenue last month, or no, December, pardon me. And he's now got a clothing line. He's doing stuff like you would not believe. Just got his catalog in the mail a couple of days ago, and my wife's already spent $500 out of it. You're going to meet and listen to a guy who knows how to do an ethical business. So much of what you're seeing here about business today, I'm ashamed of business. I love business. I'm teaching this crap for 40 years. And I sit there and I look at what I see in the paper every day, and it embarrasses the hell out of me. I'm totally embarrassed at where business has gone in this world. This guy is a shining star who knows how to do it right. Let me tell you how I met him. And he told me I should say this. I was joking with him earlier today. He said, why don't you do that as your introduction? See these gorgeous shoes? Ain't bad for a 71-year-old can still get his leg up. Not too bad. Look at him tomorrow. Yeah, tomorrow I'll be limping, but I ordered these shoes from Zappos. There was a problem in it. I kept ordering the wrong size. 4 different times I ordered the wrong damn size. You were looking at Freddie Dum Dum. I mean, I'm stupid. I kept calling up saying, oh, I ordered the wrong size. Oh, send them back. No problem whatsoever. I've never dealt with customer service that was so positive in my life. 4 times I sent them back. And I finally got the right one. So I said, I called the lady up. I said, look, I want to make sure you understand. You didn't lose money on this. You were so good to me and everything. I was so happy with you. I bought 5 pair of these damn things. So I'll have enough to last until I'm dead. And I bought others too. I got to tell you, my wife's sole support. I'm now running the 2nd place. The lady said to me, oh, you ought to write Tony a letter. He likes to hear from customers. I said, who the hell's Tony? She said, well, he's our leader, our boss, our everything. So I sent him an email and I said, I just want to tell you how fabulous your employees are and everything like that. And I was rather impressed. I got a note back from him in this book of his employees. I'm going to leave this here and he's going to refer to it. These are notes and comments from his employees. His employees are the happiest folks in town, and I'm sure he's going to talk to you about his efforts in that respect. Most incredible thing, and a bunch of them signed it and everything else. I've never seen any company be so proud of their employees, and they'll put out a manual of this size letting the employees say what they want to say about what it's like working at this company. I mean, you better be damn sure you're doing good to let your employees put something like this out. That's damn good customer service. So, before we get started, I've got to embarrass him a little bit. David, you going to come up? Good. We are here to give him an award, but as I told him earlier, we're using him to motivate you. We're going to hand him a little award here. It's nice. You can hang it on the wall. It's Conrad Hilton's name on it, all that stuff, the guy that started the Hilton chain. Most important here is what he's going to give you guys in your minds and the feel you're going to get of, my God, you can have an ethical, honest, decent business and still make money. That's what you got to learn today. So let me read this to you. Thank you, David. Conrad Hilton Distinguished Entrepreneur Award, celebrating entrepreneurial excellence, exceptional achievement, and powerful leadership. Presented to Tony Hsieh, Zappos.com founder. Tony became involved with Zappos as an advisor and investor when it was first started in 1999. He joined the firm as its head in 2000. He has grown the firm from $1.6 million in sales in 2000 to just over $1 billion in the end of 2008. His main thrust with the firm is to relentlessly focus on excellence in customer service. The firm has won numerous awards for outstanding customer service. He also has created an atmosphere of the culture and feel of a small company, even though they're getting quite big. Employee spirit, teamwork, and loyalty are the watchwords of the firm, and admired and it's honored and admired throughout the business world. Prior to his leadership role in Zappos, Tony co-founded Venture Frogs, an incubator and investment firm that has been involved with startups such as Ask Jeeves, Tell Me Networks, and Zappos.com. He also co-founded Link Exchange, an advertising network that sold to Microsoft for $265 million in 1998. Truly, Tony Hsieh is the poster boy for the serial entrepreneur. He has the touch of gold as an entrepreneur who creates the future and does it with ethics and social responsibility. We are absolutely proud to have you here, my friend. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Wanted to start with a quick survey first. How many of you have actually shopped with Zappos before? Wow. So normally when I do this survey, the ratio is actually about 2 to 1 women to men, and a lot of men tell me that they haven't themselves shopped from us, but they're vaguely aware that their girlfriend or wife or significant other has shopped from us before because they keep seeing these white boxes show up at their house. And so we're actually located in Las Vegas, and we give tours to the public. So next time any of you guys are in Las Vegas, let us know. I'll give the information for contacting us on how to get a tour. But it's a lot of fun. It takes about an hour. We'll pick you up from the airport in a Zappos shuttle and then drop you off at your hotel or Las Vegas destination of your choice after that. And, but anyway, so we had the executive of a major record label come and tour our offices a few months ago. And he goes through the ground floor of our building, and that's the merchandising section. And then he goes upstairs to our customer loyalty team, which is what we call our call center. And I asked him, have you shopped with us before? And he said no, but he thinks his wife has, but she won't tell him how much she's actually spent with us. And so he sat himself down to one of our customer loyalty reps and forced her to pull up his wife's account. And he discovered that she had spent over $62,000 behind his back in his lifetime. So I hope they're not divorced today. So anyways, want to talk about the first what led me to Zappos. And the story actually starts with pizza in college. I was running a pizza business on the ground floor of my dorm. We probably had about 300 or 400 people in our dorm, and basically my roommate and I were running the pizza business together, and we would order supplies, hire workers, set the prices. Occasionally I was making the pizza myself. And every night, this guy named Alfred, who's actually our CFO today at Zappos, he would stop by every night and order a large pepperoni pizza from me. And that wasn't actually that weird, because in college we actually had 2 nicknames for him. We would call him either Monster or the Human Trash Compactor, because anytime we went out to a Chinese restaurant after a late night of drinking and eating, like there'd be 10 of us, and he would basically finish off everyone's leftovers, like all 10 people, and it was just crazy. And so, it wasn't that weird. He would come by and buy a large pizza, but then sometimes a few hours later, he would come by and buy another large pepperoni pizza, and I was like, geez, this guy can really, really eat. Well, I found out several years later, he was actually taking them upstairs and selling them off by the slice. So that's why he's our CFO today. So after the pizza experience, Alfred and actually the college roommate I was running the pizza business with, we got together and formed a company called Link Exchange, and we grew that to about 100 or so people and ended up selling the company to Microsoft in 1998. But what a lot of people don't know is actually the reason why we ended up selling the company. And the reason is because we didn't know any better to pay attention to company culture. I remember when it was just 5 or 10 of us, it was a lot of fun. It was like your typical .com back in the day, where we were working around the clock, had no idea what day of the week it was, sleeping under our desks, showering every once in a while. And then, but even though we hired all the people with the right experience and skill set, we didn't look for culture fit. And by the time it was 100 people, like I myself dreaded getting out of bed in the morning to go into the office. And that's kind of a weird feeling, because here was a company that I co-founded, and if I didn't want to go into the office, how did the other employees feel? So we ended up selling the company, and then Alfred and I got together and we formed an investment fund and invested in about 20 or so different internet companies, and Zappos just happened to be one of them. And over a period of about a year or so, it became clear that Zappos was both the most fun and the most promising. So basically within a year, I joined Zappos full-time. I've been with Zappos ever since. So quick overview of Zappos. Most people, when they hear Zappos, think of us as an online retailer of shoes, but we actually sell a lot more than shoes today. We sell clothing, handbags, even electronics, houseware, kitchenware. And internally, we think of ourselves pretty differently. We really just want the Zappos brand to be about the very best customer service and customer experience. And hopefully 10 years from now, people won't even realize we started out selling shoes online. So And actually, it doesn't even have to be about online. We've had customers email us and ask us, can we please start an airline or run the IRS? And we're not going to do any of those things this year, but 20, 30 years from now, I wouldn't rule out a Zappos Airlines that's just about the very best customer service and customer experience. So one brand we look at to sometimes for inspiration is Virgin. They're in a whole bunch of different businesses, music, airlines, and so on. The difference is that Virgin is about kind of more about being hip and cool, whereas we just want to be about the best customer service. So we've gotten a lot of press and recognition recently, but actually the one that we're most proud of is in January, we just made Fortune 100 Best Companies to Work For. And that was a goal that we set early on because I wanted to make sure that we didn't make the same mistake at Zappos and really just made sure that we had the best company culture. So we have a little over 10 million customers, which is roughly about 3.5% of the US population. And really, we've just focused on making our existing customers happy. On any given day, about 75% of our orders are from repeat customers. And over the years, we've grown from basically no sales in 1999 to surpassing $1 billion in gross merchandise sales in 2008. And the #1 driver of that growth has been through repeat customers and word of mouth. Basically, our philosophy is take most of the money that we would have spent on paid advertising and paid marketing, instead put that into the customer experience and customer service, and then let our customers have that wow experience and then do the marketing for us through word of mouth. So we offer free shipping both ways. A lot of customers will order 10 different shoes, try them on with 10 different outfits, and then send back the ones they don't like, and we encourage that. We have a 365-day return policy for people that have trouble, I guess, committing or making up their minds. And most websites, it's pretty hard to find contact information. Usually it's buried 5 links deep, and then it's only an email address. We take the exact opposite approach and put our 1-800 number at the top of every single page of our website because we actually want to talk to our customers. And it's kind of funny because a lot of times I'll be speaking at marketing or branding conferences, and there's a lot of discussion about what's the best way to get your message or brand out to the consumer, because consumers are being bombarded with thousands and thousands of marketing messages every day. How do you get your brand to stick out? And as kind of unsexy and low-tech as it sounds, the telephone is actually one of the best branding devices out there. You have the customer's undivided attention for 5 to 10 minutes. If you get the interaction right, what we found is that they'll remember that for a long time and tell their friends and family about us. And then a lot of the stuff we do is actually stuff that happens after we get the credit card. So we make sure that the orders are fulfilled quickly and accurately. We surprise upgrade a lot of customers to overnight shipping. And everyone in the call center is actually trained so that if you're looking for a pair of shoes and let's say we're out of stock of your size, to actually look on competitor websites, try to find it for the customer, and if they find it, refer the customer to that competitor. And yes, we'll lose that sale, but we're not interested in maximizing every single transaction. We're interested in building a lifelong relationship with the customer. And if you view that telephone call as a chance to brand yourself, that's the best way to brand yourself as someone that cares about the customer and about customer service. So our call center is actually, you'll see when you visit our offices, it's run very differently from most call centers. We don't have scripts, we don't have call times, we don't try to upsell. Really, we just trust the reps to go above and beyond and deliver the best experience to the customer. So I talk about all these things that we do for customer service, but our #1 priority in the company is actually not customer service. Our #1 priority in the company is company culture. Our whole belief is that if we get the culture right, then most of the other stuff, like great customer service or building a long-term enduring brand, will just happen naturally on its own. So what are some of the things that we do culture-wise? Well, it starts with the hiring process. We actually do 2 sets of interviews. The hiring manager and his or her team will do the standard interview for fit within the team, relevant experience, technical ability, and so on. But then our HR department does a separate set of interviews purely for culture fit, and they have to pass both in order to be hired. So we've actually passed on a lot of really smart and talented people that we know can make an immediate impact to our top or bottom line. But if they're not a culture fit, we won't hire them. And the reverse is true too. We'll fire you even if you're doing your specific job function perfectly fine if you're not good for the culture. And performance reviews are 50% based on whether you're living the Zappos culture and inspiring the culture in others. The other thing we do is everyone that's hired into our Las Vegas office, which is where our headquarters is, doesn't matter what position you can be, an accountant or lawyer or software developer, you go through the exact same training as our call center reps. So the training is basically, there's 1 week in Kentucky where you do all the different warehouse functions, shipping, receiving, and returns processing, and so on. But the 4 weeks in Vegas, we go over company history, our philosophy about customer service, our philosophy about company culture, and then you're actually on the phone for 2 weeks taking calls from customers. And for us, actually, even during that process, we've had people that are senior people and technical and so on, where their job was not to work in the call center, but if they can't deliver great customer service, we'll actually fire them during that training. Because our belief is that if we're serious about the company's brand being about the very best customer service, then customer service shouldn't just be a department, it should be the entire company. During that training, we also, at the end of the first week, make an offer. And the offer is this, at the end of the first week. We're gonna pay you for all the time you already spent training, plus an additional $2,000 to quit and leave the company right now. And that's a standing offer until the end of the 4 weeks of training. And the reason is because we don't want people there just for a paycheck. And in Las Vegas, there's plenty of other call centers, and starting at $11 an hour as a call center rep, $2,000 is a pretty significant amount of money. Actually, in 2007, we had around 3% of people take the offer. In 2008, less than 1% of people took the offer. So we keep trying to up the offer because not enough people are actually taking it. But we just want people that truly believe that they believe in our long-term vision about us being about the very best customer service, and they believe that this is the culture that they want to be with. We also, how many people here on Twitter or have used Twitter before? So we actually train employees during that 4 weeks. We sign them up on Twitter, and we found that that's also another great way for building company culture, because employees can meet up with each other outside the office or just learn more about each other. And if you actually go to twitter.zappos.com, there's a link at the top. We have about 400 employees out of the 700 that are in Las Vegas, and we aggregate all their tweets together so you can see like what they're doing on weekends and after work and so on. So for 2009, we're really focused on building our brand around the 3 C's: clothing, customer service, and culture. We've actually had customers email us and tell us that when they receive that perfect pair of shoes or that perfect outfit, that Zappos is happiness in a box. And we also try to make our customers happy through the customer service that we deliver. And then our focus on culture, we want to make sure that our employees are happy. So we look at this as kind of a pyramid in terms of how well the customer knows us. So we start at the bottom. If a customer has never heard of Zappos, then basically we want to make sure we get the clothing message out, because the rest of the stuff doesn't really make sense until you know that Zappos sells shoes and clothing. And once they know that we have a great selection of clothing and shoes, then we want to make sure that they get the customer service message. And that's not really something that we tell them so much as something they experience when they call us. And we find that on average, every customer calls us at least one time, sometime during their lifetime, or they receive the special surprise upgrades to overnight shipping. So a lot of, especially our repeat customers, will order as late as midnight Eastern, and then the box shows up magically on their doorstep 8 hours later. That creates that wow experience. And then if they know about our customer service, then we want to make sure they understand the Zappos culture, because it's really the culture that is driving everything else. So all of these things are basically, whether it's about making employees happy or making customers happy, the thing that we think of that ties all of this together is that Zappos is really just about delivering happiness, whether it's to customers, employees, or our vendors. So I've talked a lot about culture, but then a common question we get is, well, what is the Zappos culture? And we formalized the definition of our culture into 10 core values. And actually the key word here is committable core values, because a lot of big companies especially they might call them core values or guiding principles or so on, but usually they're very lofty sounding and they read like a press release. Maybe you learn about it on day 1 of orientation, but then it's just a meaningless plaque on the wall. And when we came up with our core values, we wanted to make sure that they were committable core values, meaning that we would be willing to hire and fire based on those and forget anything else that's happening. So we came up with the list of 10 core values, And then we actually have interview questions when we interview candidates around each of these core values. The one that actually probably trips us up the most is number 10, be humble. We interview a lot of people that have a lot of great experience and are really smart and talented, but if they're egotistical, then there's not even a debate. We just won't hire them. Whereas what would happen at most companies is the discussion afterwards would be, well, this guy is probably going to rub you the wrong way, and he's kind of annoying, but he's going to add a lot of value to the company, so therefore we should hire him. And that one hire isn't going to bring the company downhill, the culture downhill, but you keep making compromises like that over and over and over again. That's, I think, why most large companies don't have great company cultures. So example of some interview questions. For number 3, one of our interview questions is, on a scale 1 to 10, how weird are you? And if you answer a 1, you're probably a little bit too straight-laced for us at Zappos. I guess if you answer 10, you're probably too psychotic for us. But it's not really so much about what the actual number is. It's really just, our belief is that everyone is a little weird somehow, and this is more just a fun way of expressing that we really celebrate everyone's individuality, and we want their true personalities to come out. Whether it's interacting with each other. If you come to our offices, you'll see some people have decorated their cubes in a pirate theme, and I'm actually in a rainforest cafe type of theme where there's vines hanging overhead. So whether it's with each other or even over the phone. So our reps since they don't have scripts, they can basically talk to the customer however they want. That fits their personality. So you might call Zappos twice, and the first time get someone that's really chatty and likes to tell jokes and so on, and is trying to make you laugh. And then maybe call a second time, get someone that's not a joke teller, but here's a dog barking in the background, and then ask you about the dog because that rep also has a dog, or maybe you're from the same hometown. And we don't really care as long as we're building a personal emotional connection with our customers and really delivering that above and beyond customer experience. Another example is number 4, be adventurous, creative, and open-minded. So one of our interview questions for this is, on a scale 1 to 10, how lucky are you in life? 1 is, I don't know why bad things always seem to happen to me. 10 is, I don't know why good things always seem to happen to me. Well, we don't want to hire the 1s because they're going to bring bad luck to Zappos. But this was actually inspired by a research study that I read about a few years ago, where they actually just took a whole bunch of random people and asked that exact same question. And so they got answers all over the board, some 1s, some 10s, a lot in between. And then they had them all do a task. And the task was this. Go through a newspaper, they gave them a newspaper, and count the number of photos that are in that newspaper. And then when you're done, tell the researcher the answer. Well, what they didn't know was that it was actually a fake newspaper. And sprinkled throughout the newspaper were headlines that would say things like, if you're reading this now, you can stop, the answer is 37, and tell the researcher you read this headline, collect an extra $100. And what they found was that the people that considered themselves unlucky in life generally just never read the headlines and just went through the task at hand, eventually got the right answer. But then the people that considered themselves lucky in life generally stopped early, made an extra $100 because they noticed the headlines. So the takeaway isn't so much that people are inherently lucky or unlucky, but that luck is really more about being open to opportunity beyond the situation that may seem to be presenting itself at hand. And so that's why we asked that question for our core value number 4. So one of the responses we get from people that we come visit our offices or hear my presentations is they're like, okay, that's great, happy for you guys, Zappos, but happy for your culture, but that would never work at my company. And there's actually a book called Good to Great by Jim Collins, where he actually looks at different successful companies, and one of the attributes they have in common is that they have really strong cultures. And basically his conclusion was that it actually doesn't matter what your core values are. What's important is that you have them and that you're aligned with them, but they can really basically be whatever works for your company. And the most important thing is having that alignment, because when you have that alignment, then you avoid a lot of debate and discussion about things, and then it just has this multiplicative, like snowball-like effect in getting everyone to move in the same direction. So I wanted to talk about 7 steps that what we found worked for us at Zappos in terms of building a long-term enduring brand and getting to that $1 billion mark for us. And the first thing is, it sounds simple, but it's actually not. It's deciding that that's something that you want to do, because there's always trade-offs between profitability and revenue in the short term and doing something that's right for your brand in the long term. And an example is when we actually, so we didn't start out wanting the Zappos brand to be about customer service. When we started out, it was the whole original .com days, and we just wanted to sell a lot of shoes. And then one day we sat around, this was a few years into it, and asked ourselves, what do we want to be when we grow up? Do we want to be about shoes, or do we want to be about something more meaningful? And then that's when we decided we were going to be about customer service. Well, at the time we had that discussion, about 75% of our revenue was from items that we had in stock in our own warehouse and inventoried. And about 25% of our revenue was basically stuff that we had to rely on other suppliers to ship to the customer. And that was called drop shipping because we didn't actually own the inventory. And we also didn't control it. So what that meant was a lot of times if someone ordered from something that was not in our inventory, like maybe the inventory feed wasn't perfect or they wouldn't ship it out right away, and it ended up being a bad customer experience, even though on paper, financially, it was great for us. We didn't have any inventory risk and we didn't have to manage the inventory. It was basically like free money for us. Well, when we made that decision that we were going to be about the best customer service, we basically decided overnight to turn off that 25% of revenue. And that was actually kind of a scary decision for us at the time because we weren't profitable, we couldn't raise funding, but we knew it was the right thing to do for our brand in the long term. And this is just an example where we walk away from the short-term profits and revenue so that we could be true to our brand in the long term. I've talked a lot about figuring out core values and culture. And actually, one question I get a lot is, if I could do Zappos all over again, what would I do differently? And one of the things I would do differently is actually do core values and figure out what the core values are from day one. We didn't do it until 4 or 5 years ago. And there was actually a lot of resistance internally, and including from myself when we were trying to roll out these core values because it kind of felt like, oh, this is big company stuff. We're at the size where we don't really need to worry about that yet or think about it. It just seems kind of corporate. But actually, we found that it gets employees just all aligned, and when you have your hiring process and firing process and performance reviews include core values, then suddenly the core values become part of your everyday language, and we don't even notice. Like every day, people are just talking about the core values, but not talking about them, but just using it as part of their everyday language. And when people come and visit, they almost feel like they've walked into a cult or something because we don't even notice it. We're just using this as part of our everyday language. So, and the other advantage of I feel like I got lucky because we actually went through a year-long process where we asked our employees, what should our core values be? And then we got a whole bunch of answers, and over a period of a year, came up with our list of 10 core values. And I feel I got lucky because they were pretty much in line with my personal core values. And, and this was more something I realized like over the last few years, because I'd never really thought about what are my own personal values. And it's actually not that easy to try to come up with a list of your own personal values, but I would encourage you guys to think about what are your personal values. And the ideal scenario is you have your company's core values match your personal values, and also all the employees' personal values, and you get that through the hiring process and so on. And then you don't have to worry about brand positioning and so on because every employee is just automatically living the brand. So when we get interviews from TV or other media or have job candidates come, what happens at most companies is the PR person will show the reporter around and then say, okay, you can talk to this VP and this communications person, but don't talk to anyone else because they don't know the brand positioning and so on. Whereas what we do is we give them a tour, and then after the tour say, restroom's over there and snack room is over there, and then go ahead and talk to whoever you want. We don't care because we know that our employees are living the values because they made it through the hiring process, and we continue to train them every day on that. So number 3 is about committing to transparency. And I think, especially today when happy or unhappy employee or customer can write something and then through Twitter or blogging or whatever, it can be read instantly by millions of people. So companies are becoming more and more transparent whether they like it or not. And we basically choose to embrace transparency at all different levels. So twitter.zappos.com is something that's consumer facing. Anyone can see what people are saying about Zappos on Twitter anywhere. They can see what our employees are up to. We have a newsletter called Ask Anything where employees can email and ask basically any question they want, and we'll get the appropriate person to answer them. So they can ask about financials, or they can ask about what brands we're going to carry. And we also encourage them to ask silly questions sometimes, like, do vegetarians eat animal crackers? And then we'll research that and answer it. We also have an extranet for vendors, where we work with 1,500 different brands. So basically, they can all log in and see the exact same information that our own buyers can see. They can see sales, profitability, on-hand inventory, markdowns, and so on. And our vendors are very surprised because they ask us, well, it's great you're sharing all this information, but aren't you worried it's going to get in the hands of competitors? And probably at least some of the information does get into the hands of competitors at some point. But on the flip side, we have an extra 1,500 pairs of eyes helping us manage the business, and they're not on our payroll. And they get this daily sales report, and then they become really just engaged and partners in the business. I talked about our tours and reporters. And then we also have recently launched a site called ZapposInsights.com, where for people that can't come for a tour, because we've also had companies that'll, like Southwest Airlines or Lego, come and spend an entire day or two with us, and we're very open in sharing all our information. They might spend a few hours in the call center listening in on calls, a few hours talking to recruiting, learning about how we interview and so on, a few hours of training. But for companies that can't make it, we started a subscription service called ZapposInsights.com, where basically you can ask the same question, ask whatever questions you want, and then we'll get, if it's a recruiting question, for example, we'll get the head of recruiting to answer the question on video, and then that question and answer is then available to all the other subscribers. Number 4 is about vision, and I talked a bit about how we went from shoes to being about customer service. And a lot of times when I speak with entrepreneurs, the question is, what's a good market to get to? Where can I make a lot of money? And my response is, don't worry about chasing the money, because if you're chasing the money first and foremost, then it's actually going to make it harder to make money. I try to say, chase the vision, not the money. And the ironic thing is that the money will actually follow. So think about Craigslist, where Craig was basically just passionate about the community. It wasn't trying to make money. And now Craigslist is one of the top traffic sites in the world. So I like to say, chase the vision, not the money. I actually saw a movie recently called Notorious. Did anyone see that? Anyways, he says, Puff Daddy's, that was his name at the time, says to Biggie Smalls, don't chase the paper, chase the dream. So actually, I just wanted an excuse to put these slides up. So my question for entrepreneurs is really think about, what would you be passionate about doing for 10 years, even if you never made a dime? And that's what you should be doing. Or if you have employees, and what's the larger vision and greater purpose in your employees' work that you too believe in, that's beyond just money or profits or being number one in a market? There's a lot of books and consultants that talk about how do you motivate employees. And there's some things that definitely work, but what we found at Zappos is that there's a big difference between motivation and inspiration. And if you can inspire employees with a greater purpose in your vision of what the company is about, then that will accomplish so much more than any type of motivational techniques. Step number 5 is about building relationships. I personally hate networking events because it always feels like trying to trade business cards with someone, and hopefully I can help them out and then they can help me out and so on. Whereas what I found, and I don't know why this works, but basically no matter whether it's a business function or you just meet someone random that's not even in the business world, if you try to just actually get to know them as a person and you're truly interested in them as a person, then and build up the relationship and friendship over the years, for whatever reason, I found that usually 2 to 3 years later down the line, something comes up where that person helps out either the business or myself personally. I have no idea why it works. That's just what it seems to have happened to work. And basically what I found is that there's something interesting about almost everyone that you meet. You just have to figure out what that something is. And then if you're actually interested in them, then you can develop a friendship. And thinking back on all the big things that have happened at Zappos in terms of getting us to where we are, like most of them just seem like plain dumb luck. Like it just so happened that this person that I met 2 or 3 years earlier and developed a friendship with, his sister's boss is the VP of some company that we want to do business with, and and that basically helped us really save a year at Zappos. And there's just so many stories like that where really it's completely unpredictable, but it somehow always seems to work out. I was recently at the inauguration and saw Al Gore speak, and I like this quote he gave: "If you want to go quickly, go alone. If you want to go far, go together." And another response I give to people that ask, what would you do differently? I would hire more slowly and fire more quickly. And it's always tempting when, especially in small companies, where you feel like there's 1,000,001 things to do, and you just want to fill a seat with basically a warm body. But we've seen it happen so many times where someone that wasn't quite the right fit, but we've been looking to fill that position for so long, and we're getting desperate, ended up causing a lot more damage in the long run because we weren't willing to be patient with that hire. And the thing, that basically the common theme to all of this is really just about thinking long term, and don't chase the short-term profits or the short-term revenue if it's not good for your brand in the long term. So, wanted to take a step back and not talk about this business stuff for a while, and then ask you guys to think of a question. And the question is, what is your goal in life? What are you trying to accomplish? And different people have different answers. So, if you ask some people, they might say, well, I want to get a girlfriend, or I want to get a job, or I want to get an A in this class, or so on. I want to start a company. And so you ask the question, well, why? And then they say, well, then I can get married or make more money or so on. And then you ask why again, and they'll have different answers. I want to be able to own a home or so on. But if you keep asking yourself why, if you ask most people why over and over again, the interesting thing is eventually ask why enough times, it's all the same answer. And the answer is because it'll make you happy. Like you think that this thing will make you happy. So I've been actually just personally interested in this whole research. For the past year or so, I've been researching the science of happiness. So I'm not talking about the self-help, like think positive and you'll be happy type of thing, but the actual science behind happiness, because there's actually been quite a bit of research done on it. And one of the consistent things that the research has shown is that people are very bad at predicting what will bring them long-term happiness. A lot of people fall in the trap of when I get this, then I'll be happy, or when I achieve this, then I'll be happy, or whether it's the car, the house, winning that state championship, whatever. And they've done a lot of studies on lottery winners where they look at the happiness level of lottery winners right before they won, and then look at it a year later, and they're generally at the same level of happiness, or maybe even a little bit more unhappy a year later after winning the lottery. Whereas everyone thinks if I won the lottery, then I'll be happy forever. So I thought that was interesting that people are bad at it. And then I thought about, well, at Zappos and a lot of these marketing conferences we go to, like, we're always spending time looking to the science of whether it's direct marketing or looking at our repeat customer behavior, conversion, and so on. And then I thought the interesting question would be, well, what if actually you just spent some of your time, I don't know what the right percentage is, but instead of spending 100% of your time, if you're in business, worrying about all the business stuff, what if you spent some percentage of your time actually learning about or researching about the actual science of happiness? How much happier could you be? So, you look at all these different things that people are trying to do with the ultimate goal of getting happy. So what if by studying the science of happiness, you could basically just take a shortcut and go straight to the happiness instead of doing all this extra work. So I just wanted to share a Cliff Notes version of basically some of the stuff that I've learned through my research, and so share a few different frameworks of happiness that has come from the research. So the first framework is that happiness is really only about 4 things. It's about perceived control, perceived progress, connectedness, meaning the number and depth of your relationships, and vision or meaning, being part of something bigger than yourself. And the interesting thing is you can actually take these things that really apply to personal happiness and also apply them to customers as well as employees. And so just to give an example, for our merchandising team for perceived progress, it used to be that you would come in entry level as a merchandising assistant, and you would do that for 18 months, and then you'd become an assistant buyer after getting certified and passing and so on, and then become an assistant buyer for 18 months, and then you become a buyer. So it took 3 years to become a buyer, and at Zappos, being a buyer is a pretty big thing. And so, but then we changed it a few years ago, and changed it so that instead you were merchandising assistant level 1 for 6 months, and then merchandising assistant level 2 for 6 months, and then level 3 for 6 months, and then assistant buyer 1, 2, 3, each of those for 6 months. So it took the exact same amount of time, took 3 years to become a buyer, and it was the exact same training and certification process and so on, except we found that employees were much happier because they had that sense of perceived progress every 6 months instead of waiting for 18 months. And then in terms of connectedness, that's really part of the reason why we focus so much on company culture. And then I talked about how once we changed our vision and made it something more meaningful for employees, they were just a lot more engaged and productive within the company. Another framework is Maslow's hierarchy, and there's actually a great book called Peak by Chip Conley, where he actually condenses this into just 3 levels and talks about how to apply Maslow's hierarchy to both employees and customers, and as well as investors. And so just as an example, for employees, it's about how do you go from job at the base level to career to calling. And that's really our goal at Zappos, is to have employees that really want to be at Zappos for the long term, that's their calling. And one of our survey questions for employees is actually on a scale 1 to 10, how likely are you going to be at Zappos 10 years from now? And the only way an employee is going to be there for the long term is if they believe in our long-term vision and they also want to be part of the culture and they're continually growing and learning. And so we invest a lot in mentoring and providing training classes for our employees so that they can continue to learn during their entire 10 years or more at Zappos. Third framework for happiness is that there's really just 3 types of happiness: pleasure, engagement, and meaning. So the first type I like to call the rock star type of happiness, because it's always about just basically chasing your next high. But what's interesting, what the research has shown, is that actually as soon as the source of stimuli goes away, then actually your happiness level drops much faster than the other 2 types of happiness. And so basically, this type of, it's great if you can achieve that, but it's a very hard type of happiness to sustain for long term unless you're a rock star. And so, and most of us are not. So the second type is flow. There's actually a book by the same name. And flow is about when you're so engaged that time just flies. You're doing something for 3 hours, but it seems like only 20 minutes have passed. And then the other characteristic of flow is that you kind of lose a sense of self-consciousness or self altogether because you're so engaged in that. And so for some people, that might be running. For other people, that might be painting. And it's different for different people. And really, if you're trying to achieve more flow, then the advice is just try to change your job or change where you live or so on, change your hobby so that you're more likely to increase your chances of experiencing that state by having those types of things happen more often. And this type of happiness lasts longer than the rockstar type of happiness when the source of stimuli goes away. And the third type is about being part of something bigger than yourself. And so for a lot of people, this might be volunteering for a charity that they believe in, for example. And what they found is that this type of happiness actually is the longest lasting. But the interesting thing is most people go through this list from number 1 to number 2 to number 3, meaning that they think, okay, I'm going to focus on number 1, and then once I can achieve that, then I'll worry about 2, and then once I achieve that, then I'll worry about 3. When really, and this isn't me trying to say be altruistic or anything, this is just based on the data that of the actual research that's done. The correct strategy based on the data from the research is you should actually start with number 3, and after that, worry about number 2, and then after that, then add number 1 to it as kind of icing on the cake. So I have some books that I recommend, and also make this presentation available so you don't have to write this down. So I talked about Peak. Tribal Leadership is a book where they studied a bunch of companies that really just outperformed in the stock market and financially in general, and found that really there were 2 things that those companies had in common. One was they had a very strong culture, and 2 was that they had a higher purpose beyond just being number 1 in their market. They had a culture that was meaningful to the employees. There's a book called 4-Hour Workweek, which is by a guy who basically used to work long hours, all in the hopes that one day he would save up enough money so that he could travel all around the world. And then when he realized his dream was to travel around the world, he decided to actually just do that. And he made a lot less money, but at the same time, he was able to bring the thing that he was actually most happy about. And then there's a book called Happiness Hypothesis, which is actually, for me, the most interesting book that I've read in the last 5 years or so. And basically, the author looks at a bunch of different cultures and philosophers and religions from different time periods. And each of them actually has a different concept of what happiness is. And then he compares it with actual scientific research that's been done, and basically either agrees with or disproves basically what they believe happiness is. So these are all great books to read. So just wanted to leave you guys with thinking about, if the ultimate goal of everything is to be happy, what % of your time do you want to spend thinking about the science of happiness? And if you're in business, how can the science of happiness, learning more about it, help your business, your brand, as well as itself personally? And the interesting thing is, if all the research shows that having vision or meaning or higher purpose leads to happiness, both for yourself and for employees, think about what is your company's higher purpose, and what is your higher purpose. So I'm speaking today not because I'm trying to sell another pair of shoes, but hopefully if you've been inspired to, whether it's make customers happier through better customer service, or make employees happier through company culture, or just make yourself happier by learning more about the science of happiness, if any of those has registered, then I'll have done my part in helping Zappos achieve our higher purpose, which is about delivering happiness to the world. So that's pretty much it. I have time for a quick pizza story then, another pizza story. This was actually a while back when I was actually at there was a bunch of us from Zappos at a Skechers sales conference. Skechers is one of our brands. And so during the day, it was a sales conference. And this was in Santa Monica. I'd never really been to Santa Monica before in terms of actually experiencing what it's like at night. And so a bunch of us decided to go bar hopping that night after the conference was over. And there were 3 people from Skechers and 3 people from Zappos. And so we went to the first bar and ordered a round of drinks. And then someone, I don't know who, decided to order a round of shots. So we took them because we were obligated to. And then we went to the next bar and then ordered a round of drinks, and then someone else decided to order a round of shots. And so we took them because we didn't want to look bad in front of the Skechers people. And then we went to the third bar and ordered another round of drinks. And then I actually don't know how many shots came after that. But what I do know is that we ended up shutting down all the bars at last call at 2 a.m. So we're walking back to our hotel, and this one Skechers girl that was with us, just was talking the entire way, like talking about, I'm so hungry and I'm really craving a pepperoni pizza. I can't wait to go back to the hotel room and order a large pepperoni pizza from room service because I saw it on the menu. And so we're like, great, well, let's go. And so we all went to someone's hotel room, and there were 6 of us there, and she calls room service. And unfortunately, room service informed her that they don't deliver hot food after 11 p.m. And by then it was almost 3 a.m. And so she was all dejected, and she was like, oh, I was so craving that pepperoni pizza, and I'm so disappointed. And so I tell her, hey, did you know in college, I used to make pepperoni pizzas? And she looks at me and stares at me and is like, that's so not helpful right now. So the rest of us were in our, I guess, inebriated state, told her, well, call Zappos. We're about the best customer service. And, well, that's exactly, we thought it was the funniest thing ever. And so, in that state of mind. And so, so she actually put it on speakerphone and, took our dare and called the 1-800 number. And the rep answered, and, the rest of us were silent. She said, hi, I'm in the Santa Monica area, and I've been craving this pepperoni pizza all night. And, tried calling room service. They have pepperoni pizza on the menu, but they won't deliver after 11 p.m. And, I'm just really, really hungry, and I've been thinking about this all night. And, well, first there was an awkward silence. And then the rep said, well, you called Zappos, right? We sell shoes and clothes and handbags, but we don't sell pizza yet. And so he's like, yeah, but I've just been so hungry and craving. I've been thinking about this for the last few hours. And so the rep said, okay, hold on. And put her on hold, and then came back 2 minutes later with the list of the 5 closest places in the Santa Monica area that were still delivering pizza at that time. So I hesitate a little to tell the story because I don't want all of you to start calling Zappos and ordering pizza. But I just think it's a fun story to tell to, clearly we don't have a process or procedure in place for this. But, if you get the culture right, then most of the other stuff, including, weird requests like this, will just fall into place and happen naturally on their own. So that's my pizza story.
Okay. I want to leave you guys with a thought. I did seriously want to get this embedded in the back of your mind. Very proudly, for 35 years, we've taught entrepreneurship here with ethics and social responsibility, and that's something that's big at this university. I told you earlier I was embarrassed about business. I'll give you a continuum. Bernie Madoff, the biggest crook there's ever been in business. Tony Hsieh. Which side are you guys going to? Make your damn mind up tonight and never forget this guy, because you're looking at a guy that tells you what business can and should really be all about. Give him one hell of a hand.